The highly anticipated 5th episode of Ahsoka is out, and now it's time to break down the 6 key takeaways from Ahsoka Part 5. Buckle up for this one because we've got a ton to get through.
Tell me what's going on.
And honestly, at this rate, I feel like I'm saying it every single week, but this was honestly, in my opinion, the best episode of Ahsoka to date, and hopefully they just keep getting better and better. So to kick things off, let's go for a green box for Hayden Christensen. Now, I have to say, everything that this man done in this episode was spot on. Even the de-aging used on him was the best we've seen in Star Wars to date, even better than what it was in episode 4. I loved everything from the body movements, his facial expressions, the way he spoke. It was seamless. He could have fit right back into Revenge of the Sith and you wouldn't have noticed a difference. And I actually feel like he brought a whole new dimension to the character of Anakin Skywalker. Now, the general audience, the ones that haven't watched the animated shows, probably would have a hard time believing that Anakin, as we saw him in the prequel trilogy, actually trained an apprentice, let alone someone like Ahsoka Tano. But Hayden Christensen really brought that to life in the Ahsoka show and made it very believable for anyone who hasn't seen it before. Just how he was avoided during the sequel trilogy and how it took them so long to bring him back into Star Wars is honestly beyond me. Now, the second green box today is a little bit of a strange one, but that's due to the nature of the episode, and it's actually going to go to the character that Hayden Christensen portrays, being Anakin Skywalker. Now, this is just a testament to the phenomenal job that he's done in the Ahsoka show, that he's actually technically getting 2 boxes. Now, this to me feels like the proper return of Anakin to Star Wars without the Padawan braid. It was much better than his appearance in Kenobi with the flashbacks. Even though I did enjoy that as well, this was just on a completely new level. Now, this whole world between worlds sequence for me, it has to be Anakin reaching out to Ahsoka through the Force, with him being a Force ghost, rather than this just being a near-death experience that's potentially playing over in her mind. And this can be demonstrated when Anakin asks Ahsoka if she remembers effectively what just happened, and she does. So he says, "You've got a chance to still live then." So perhaps when one passes away and they transcend to the netherworld of the Force, they lose the memory that literally just happened to him, perhaps leading up to their death. Now, he tells Ahsoka that he's here to complete her training, and I kind of saw this coming because we had that moment in episode 1 or episode 2 where Ahsoka tells Hera that she never got to finish her training with Anakin because she walked away from him. Now, I have to say, this whole training sequence, this would not be possible if Anakin was still alive. And in my opinion, this is without doubt the coolest training sequence we've ever gotten in Star Wars and probably ever will get. And it explains why Anakin appears as he does in this scene with his lightsaber. It's all part of the training. I also think it's cool how Anakin wasn't actually detached from Vader. He had all of Vader's memories still, and you kind of would expect that. They're technically the same person, but it's almost like they were 2 separate entities. But this version of Anakin knew what Vader did, and this can be referenced when Ahsoka says to him, "I won't fight you," and he says, "I've heard that before." Later on, we see Anakin wielding a red saber, and there's even a moment where he's flickering between Vader and Anakin. Like, this is the sort of stuff that Star Wars fans could only dream about, if I'm honest with you. And we even get Anakin with the Sith eyes, like he had in his duel against Kenobi on Mustafar. This whole episode for me is a 10 out of 10. Now, box number 3 is going to go to a new addition to the Star Wars galaxy. Kind of. So it's going to be for the younger Ahsoka. Now, the actress that portrays the young Ahsoka, Ariana Greenblatt, I believe I pronounced that right, I'm sorry if I haven't, done a phenomenal job at bringing the Ahsoka to life that we recognise so well from the animated shows. Much different to Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka, but we'll get onto that in a moment. But I feel like this actress really managed to bring the younger version of Ahsoka to life, and it's a stark contrast to the Ahsoka that we saw in the first 4 episodes of the show. And it just makes me wonder, is there a place where we could have a younger Ahsoka series, or potentially even go a step further and have a live action Clone Wars series? And hey, at this point, just bring in Ewan McGregor and have Obi-Wan in there as well. How dope would that be? Now, talking about the Clone Wars flashbacks, let's give a green box to that on its own. Now, this was all part of Ahsoka completing her training, and she was dropped into a few different battles in this sequence, and that can also be seen with Anakin's appearance going from one with shorter hair to one with longer hair, very much close to the version that appears to Ahsoka within the World Between Worlds. Now, this is all very good because it also shows the general audience who Ahsoka really is, or who she was when she was training to become a Jedi. And she was a character that was very lively, very bubbly. As I say, a very big difference to the Ahsoka that we've had in the first part of the show. This character was full of emotion, and she deeply cared about clone troopers, and to be honest with you, she didn't want to fight. She didn't want to become a Jedi to become a warrior. She thought it was more than that, and effectively, a Jedi is more than that. It just didn't happen to play out that way during the Clone Wars. And what I find really interesting here as well is the younger Anakin that we get in the first battle scene with the shorter hair is still aware that this is a flashback and is effectively training current day Ahsoka, reinstalling that leader mentality back into her that she's lost over the years. Now, we also got a cool cameo with Captain Rex here as well, and he was voiced by Tamara Morrison. Now, I know a lot of fans are going to be very pleased with that, although I do feel it'd be better if we managed to get Rex with his helmet off, where we could actually see Tamara Morrison in that clone trooper armor. The whole scene gave me vibes of the Ghosts of Christmas, and this can also be demonstrated when they end up at the Siege of Mandalore, where Anakin says to Ahsoka, "I don't know this one," and Ahsoka mentions, "Well, this is when we already went our separate ways." Which actually brings it back to what we mentioned earlier on, that this is definitely not something that's just happening in Ahsoka's mind. I feel like this is Anakin reaching out to Ahsoka through the Force. We also get quite an awkward moment where Ahsoka tells Anakin that he's effectively very powerful, but also very dangerous. And then Anakin takes a little turn and he says, "Okay, so this is what this is about." And then the whole World Between Worlds scene shifts dramatically. And up until this point, Anakin never really addressed Vader, but it was always clear that he was very aware of his past. Now, box number 5 is going to be for Ahsoka, and I said we'd come on to this. Now, the first 4 episodes of Ahsoka I've really enjoyed, but a lot of fans out there have been saying that Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka seemed a bit bland. There's not really too much about her at the start of the season, or up until episode 4, and they're actually slating her performance as Ahsoka. But this was all written by Dave Filoni. Ahsoka is meant to be this way during this point in time. Now, it's just representing the character that she's become over the years. The World Between Worlds sequence really did snap her out of that whole thing though, and now she's out of that sequence. She's had her final lesson with Anakin. She's become what people call Ahsoka the White, and you can see already as soon as she wakes up, there's so much more personality in that character. There's so much more about her. There's much more of a poppy, much more of an exciting presence about her now. Upon leaving the World Between Worlds, or coming out of that sequence, whatever you want to call it, she managed to pick up impressions left at the henge in the Force. So it'd be interesting to see how she approaches that with Sabine when they get round to it. But also she quickly works out how to travel to this new galaxy, so that's already setting up episode 6 very nicely, and we kind of know what we can expect to see now. Although she's not totally sure this whole plan to get to the new galaxy is going to work, she's just going to roll with it. Now, I think Ahsoka before the World Between Worlds sequence definitely wouldn't have done that, but this version has, and it's very much something Anakin would have done, I feel, if he was still around. Now, box number 6 is going to be a green one, and it's going to be for the lesson that Anakin was teaching Ahsoka, her final lesson, live or die. Now, it was a lesson that Ahsoka needed to hear. Not only did it give us cool moments and flashbacks from the Clone Wars and cool scenes with Anakin and Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds, but it's also transformed that character physically into Ahsoka the White, but also spiritually and mentally as well. Now, I think this is really going to give us a better version of Ahsoka going forwards, an Ahsoka that the fans are more familiar with, perhaps from the Rebels series or the Clone Wars, rather than the one that is a little bit off from what you'd expect in the first 4 episodes. And I can also think this can play an impact in how she trains Sabine if they decide to pick up her training again after the whole star map and giving it to Baylan situation. Now, originally there was a leak saying that effectively Ahsoka couldn't change the past, and even if she could, it wouldn't have made any difference. You can't change fate. And I think actually Live or Die, I didn't think this when I first heard it, but Live or Die is a better lesson to teach Ahsoka. It has much more power behind it, and it just made for an overall better story. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I would give it, I said this last week, but it's even better this week. If last week was a 10, this would be like an 11 out of 10, but I'll stick with a 10 because that's the maximum we're going to rate it today. So excellent performance from Ahsoka, from Rosario Dawson, from both Ahsokas effectively, from Hayden Christensen, excellent visual effects, great story, The scenes we had and the moments we had in this episode is the stuff of a Star Wars fan's dreams. Guys, let me know what you thought down below in the comments. What was your favourite part of this episode? Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one. Subscribe if you're new. May the Force be with you.